In this section, we're going to power our registration form so that we can enter user information and it will go right into our MongoDB database. And we also want to implement things like form validation as well as session flash messages so that when we log in or register, we'll have a little message that says you are now logged in. All right, things like that. So let's open up. We want our routes and users.js. Okay, so far we have a bunch of GET requests for the home page, for the registration page, and the login page. Now what we need to do is create a post request function for when we submit this registration form. Now we're going to submit it to the same URL. It's just going to be a post instead of a GET like we have here. Alright, so I'm going to go down here and we're going to say router.post, and we want to post to users/register. And then the second parameter is going to be our function, just like the GET request. And this is going to take a request, response, and next. Alright, now the first thing we want to do is get the form values. Okay, so when we submit the form, we can get them with request.body and then the name of the input. So let's say name. Alright, so this here, this name, is going to come from the name attribute of each input. Alright, let me just open up the registration template, and you can see for the first input here it has a name of name, so that's where that's coming from. Alright, we want to get all of them and we want to put them in variables, so we're going to create a variable called name and set it equal to that. Okay, and we want to do that for all fields. We have email, can't type today, request.body.email. Okay, we have username, let's see what else, password, and we also want the password to field as well. That's obviously not going to go in the database, but we need it for validation. Alright, so those are the form values as far as the input fields, but remember we also have a file image. Alright, so we have this profile image that they're going to upload, and we can't get that through the request body. What we can do is get it through the request files, and then we can use Multer, which is the file managing module we installed. We can use that to do what we need it to do. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is check for image field, and we can do that. We'll say if request.files.profile image, and I'm not sure if I actually set that or not. Let me just take a look at the form here. Okay, yeah, I did. So we have this input, which is the file, and we have the name profile image. So that's where this is coming from. Alright, so we're going to check for that, and if it does, if it is getting uploaded, let's just do a console log, and we'll just say uploading file. And then we need to get all the different properties of the file object. Okay, first one we want is the original name. So we'll say profile image original name. Whoop. Is set to request dot files dot profile image dot original name, and that's the name before it gets uploaded. Alright, now we're not going to be using all of this information. I just want to get it in case we do need it. So this will be all the file info. Alright, next one we need is the name that the server gives it when we upload. So this one's going to be profile image name. Okay, and we'll set that to request dot files profile image dot name. Alright, and I'm gonna go ahead and copy this. Alright, next one we have is the MIME type. So we'll go ahead and change this to MIME. And I believe this is profile image dot MIME. I'm sorry, MIME type. And then the next one is going to be the path. And then we want to change this to path as well. And then we have the extension of the file. And we're not going to get too in-depth with the image validation to see what MIME type it is and things like that. This is what extension, but this is how you would just use these variables and just run a check. You can also get the size. Alright, so that'll give us all the file info. Now, if they don't upload an image, let's say else, and what we're going to do is set a default image. Okay, so in this case we'll just say variable profile image name is equal to no image dot png. Alright, so if there's no file uploaded, then it's just going to give it this name, and you can make an image called this, an image of whatever you want, just call it that and put it in the uploads folder. Alright, speaking of that, did we make an uploads folder? We did. Alright, so this is where all the images will go. If you remember, we actually set that in the last video in the app.js file. Okay, so that's good for the images for now. Next thing we want to do is some validation. Alright, so we're using the Express validator to do this. And the syntax for this is we want to say request dot check body. Actually, we need to be inside of this. Where does this end? Oh, it ends right there. Oh, we need to change that. This should be, everything we're doing should be within this post. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go down here and put this, put this right here. Alright, and then we'll just move everything over. Okay, and then we'll move these. Wait, no, that can stay. Alright, yeah, that should be good. Alright, so we're going to say request check body, and then we need to pass in some things here. Okay, so first is going to be the field name, or the variable that holds the field for name, which is right here. Okay, so we're going to check that field. All right, and this is going to be to make sure that there's something in that field, that it's not empty. All right, so the first parameter is the field name. Next will be the error message, and then we want to say dot not empty. All right, so that's going to just check and make sure it's not empty. So for the message, we'll just say name field is required. All right, so that'll check that, and let me just copy this. Okay, so we get a check for name, we get a check for email. All right, and for the email, we're going to have another check to make sure that it's an email. So we want to change this not empty to is email, and then we'll just change this message up. Email not valid. You can make it whatever you want. All right, so that's email. Next we have the username. All right, so username is required, of course. So we want that not empty. Next one would be password, and that's required. Password is required. Now for the password 2, okay, so password, actually, you know what? We don't need to do a not empty on the password 2, because we're going to do a check to make sure that it matches password 1. So to do this, we want to put, actually, let me go right here. We'll say password 2, and the message for this is going to be passwords do not match. Alright, and then we're going to change this not empty. We're going to change that to dot equals. Okay, and then we need to pass in the request dot body dot password. Alright, so it's going to make sure that password 2 matches password. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so let me get rid of that. We don't need that. So that will handle the actual checking. Now, what we want to do now is create a variable for errors, if we get any errors. Alright, so variable errors is going to be equal to request dot validate errors. Alright, and then we're going to, let's say if errors, if errors, then we're going to render the registration page again. So res dot render, and we're going to pass in the name of the view, which is going to be register, and then we want a function. Alright, I'm sorry, we don't want a function. We want to just pass some values through. Okay, so we're going to pass in the error, or I'm sorry, errors array. So errors. Alright, now another thing we want to pass in is if the person fills out this form and there's some validation errors, let's say the email wasn't formatted right, and they submit and they get a message that says whatever, email isn't correct, then by default all these fields are going to clear again. Alright, we don't want that. We want them to be able to save the info they added when they submit the form instead of having to do it again. All right, so we're going to pass in whatever they put in to these variables right here. All right, so errors, we're going to pass in name, email, username, password, and password 2. Oh, I'm sorry, that should be colon. Okay, and now we're going to say if there are not errors, so else, then we're going to create a new user object. So variable new user, and that's going to be set to new user. Now, user hasn't been created yet, this variable. This is going to point to our user model. All right, so we're going to create a model to encapsulate all the user functions. All right, now this is going to take a bunch of options here. Okay, and we're basically going to pass in the same stuff that we're passing back to the view if we get errors, aside from password 2. All right, and we also want to pass the profile image. Okay, that's going to be profile image name. Alright, so that creates the object. We haven't done anything with it. We haven't inserted it yet. We just created the object. Alright, so next we want to send it to a model function. Okay, we're going to create a function called createUser in the user model. Alright, but before we do that, let's just say createUser, and this is going to go user dot create user, and we're going to pass that object in, and then the callback function. Alright, and this function is going to take an error and the actual user. Okay, so we'll say if there's any errors, then we're going to throw them. And I also just want to console log the user. Now once that's done, we want to send a message, a flash message to the user. So we can do that with request.flash, and then the type of message it is. Okay, it's going to be a success message. I think there's success, info, and error. There may be a couple more. So it's going to be a success message, and we're just going to say you are now registered and may log in. And then finally, we just want to redirect them to the home page. So we're going to say res.location. It's going to go to the home, and then I'm also going to call res.redirect. Alright, so that is the registration function. So this isn't going to do anything at the moment. Alright, we have to create the user model. Now this video is getting kind of long, so we're going to do that in the next one, but I do want to check the validation and make sure that works. Alright, so let's go ahead and restart the server. We may have some errors or issues to deal with. Usually do. Okay, so the page is loading. Now let's go ahead and just try to submit this with nothing filled. Alright, so it's going to user/register. It's not found. Users. Oh, I'm sorry. We don't want to have users here because we're in the users route file. So we just want register. So let's do that and restart. Alright, so try it again. Register undefined is not a function. Okay, so we have to figure out what exactly that means. Actually, I think I know what that means. We have this going to our user model and we haven't created it yet. So let's just, for now, I'm just going to comment this out. Alright, well actually, you know what, it shouldn't have gone through there. It shouldn't have even got that far. I don't know, let's just... Let's just try that again. Alright, so it's still doing it, so I'm going to pause the video and figure this out. Alright guys, I found the issue, and it is that this is wrong, this validate errors. It should be request.validation errors. Okay, so change that to validation. And we'll save that and restart the server. And go back and submit the empty form. And you can see that it does nothing, it just brings us right back, and that's what we want. What we need to do now is just make sure that the template will show the message, the error messages. So we need to go to our registers Jade, which is right here, and I want to go right below the paragraph, and we're going to say UL and give it a class of errors, and then we want to do an if statement. We're going to say if errors, then we want to basically loop through the errors, so each error I in errors, and we're going to say li dot alert danger. Okay, so that's a bootstrap class, just to give our message a red background. And then we just want the name of the message, which we can put in here just like this. Okay, it's going to be error dot MSG. So that should just go and scroll through the errors and output each one in a list item. So we'll save that and go back to register, and now we can see that we have some issues. It gives us name fields required, emails required, emails not valid, usernames required, password is required. Now I don't see password doesn't match, which, well, I guess let's just try that. We'll just put something in here and register. Okay, so now it says passwords do not match. So we've handled the post request and the validation. We still have to create the user models, so we're going to do that in the next video.